All right, Cole, you there?
I am, yeah. You'll have
All
to
right.
forgive me. And been at a baseball game, so
Hey,
Oh.
Cole, could you turn your phone sideways so we get
see.
a view of you? There we go. Thank you,
Better?
friend.
All right. Baseball game, kids ball game, or what do you got?
Yes, yep. My son's
good
junior
time.
in high school, so yeah.
Oh, well, thanks for being here. Sorry if we had miscommunication today about time and everything.
No, it's okay. It was my fault, and I'm happy to join you.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I'm Holly, and this is Jared, and we appreciate you being on the show today. We actually were told about you last week during our show, which is what got us to get involved and communicate with you. So we're really happy you're running for District 12 for school board. And tell us why you're doing something crazy like that.
I know, huh? I actually am a school teacher. I've been teaching for 27 years. The last 17 years, I've been at American Fork High School, and the 10 years prior to that, I was at Orem High School. I've watched in education a gradual decline really over the last 23 years, but I've told people the last 4 years there's been nothing gradual about it. It's been a steep decline, and I'm not somebody that sits by and just watches. So I figured it's time to get involved and really try to change the direction of education and where we're headed.
can you spell out for me kind of what the decline is you've seen?
Yeah, one of the biggest things right now in education that's going on is that we're not holding kids accountable. And I've dealt with teenage kids for 27 years, and you give them a little bit of rope, they'll you've heard the old saying, right? You give them an inch, I'll take a foot. We've really got to kind of rein in accountability in the classroom and make sure that the focus in our classrooms and focus in education is the learning. Right now, you'll hear principals, you'll hear administrators, you'll hear districts just bragging about their graduation rates, and we're at a 97% graduation rate. And great graduation, I think, is an important step, but if you're graduating kids for the sake of graduating and they're not learning anything in the process, then what good is that degree? And we're pushing kids through the system, and we're not, and kids are lacking in their learning.
You brought up a good point, holding kids accountable, and yet when you don't hold a kid accountable, what you do is you raise an adult that's not accountable. And you just mentioned a number of adults who are not being accountable. And it's a vicious cycle. And right now, what you're seeing, like you said, we're graduating you, but you don't have the basic knowledge to read, do math, and all the things you're going to need to be a prosperous and I don't know, independent adult. And it's a circle now. It's a vicious circle. We're raising these kids, and you as teachers are getting our kids 8 hours a day out of their lives. And you're literally being told what to teach and do it this way. And yet you became a teacher probably because you want to influence and you want to teach kids about, I don't know, critical thinking and how they can best come up with decisions and answers to their questions and seek knowledge. And yet it seems like good teachers are just being blocked at every corner because there's a specific way they should be teaching.
And that's 100% what you just said, I think, is key. We have good teachers. There are good teachers in our system. But part of what's happening right now is, I'm not going to pretend to know what you guys' ages are, right? But I'm going to say when I went to school, I graduated from high school in 1991. So it's been a while. But when we went
93.
All right, there you go. But when I went to school, you'd bring home, first day of class, you'd bring home a disclosure document. And that disclosure document would clearly outline what the rules of the class are, what the expectations were. The student would sign it, the parent would sign it, the parent, would make sure that they know this is what the expectations are in this classroom. And really, in a lot of ways, the administrators in the system right now are undermining teachers. The teachers are not allowed to enforce their own policies that they're trying to, implement into their classroom, and it completely undermines the learning in the classroom. And then you get administrators coming to teachers really with a lot of pressure. I've been in the classroom for 27 years, and so I'm not easily bullied by administrators. I'll just say that, all right. And I'm not easily bullied by anybody really, but when an administrator comes to me and says, "Hey, we need you to do this, this, or this," I'll make a judgment based on what I think is best for the student. But if you're a brand new teacher and you've got a principal or an assistant principal coming down to your room and saying, "Hey, what can we do to pass this student?" and the student doesn't deserve to pass, they're almost being pressured into passing them, despite the fact that they haven't earned a grade in the class. And the key word there is earn.
Right.
The grade,
Do you know, what do you teach? What subject?
I teach financial literacy. So it's a personal finance class.
They still teach that in school?
So
you must be teaching like postgraduate
requirements. So
that's great to know. Do you know, you mentioned in college, they give you a syllabus when you start the quarter. And that syllabus not only includes, here's the outline of what you're going to be learning, but it also includes the expectations of that teacher. Show up, attend your labs, don't be late. My kids get the same thing for their classes. They go to a charter here in Tooele County, but my son's gym teacher, he put this out, and these are the expectations. I will not accept late. I will not accept this and this and this. Assignments, you can make it up within 1 week. All these things are signed at the beginning of the year. So that when my child is like, well, why can't I get a better grade than a C? Can I do extra work? And he says, refer to the outline I gave you at the beginning of the year, the commitment you signed.
Right.
And it was like, well, there you go. That's absolutely an opportunity, a learning opportunity for kids to understand basic contracts. For example, a basic contract you agreed to when you began this class. And now that it's not working for you, you don't get to bow out. You need to follow the contract. I think it's important, and it's lost.
Yeah, and part of what happened, the State Board of Education used to have a requirement. It was 180 days and 990 hours. Okay, the 990 hours went out with COVID. So right now there's 180 days that are required, but there's no hours that are required. No certain number of hours. And I've heard arguments, both for and against, why to keep that out or why not to keep that out. But the bottom line is that we're we're allowing kids to miss lots and lots of school, and then kids and even parents are still expecting kids to pass classes. I've had administrators come down to my classroom and say, "Hey, what can you do to work with this student?" And oftentimes there's circumstances behind that student that might be tragic, might be sad. But if you've got a student that's been to your class 2 times all semester long, my reply is have them go take the class online, because you can't ask me to pass a student that's been to my class 2 times the entire semester.
Right. There's consequences for not showing up.
Sure.
Well, yeah. And then that's putting your integrity on the line.
Yeah.
Especially where you're teaching a life skill, it's.
Yeah. Yeah. And the administrators, they got a lot of pressure on them. But again, I get very frustrated with administrators. I'm going to tell you a story of a peer of mine, a teacher whose administrator came down, said to them, hey, we need you to work with this student. You know, it's graduation in a week. They failed your class last term. What can you do to work with this student? And he's like, the student showed up to my class one time all semester long. They don't deserve a grade in my class. And the assistant principal persisted and persisted and persisted. And the teacher finally said, here's my username and password to my grade book. If you want to go in and change his grade, you're welcome to, but I'm not going to do it. A week later, that teacher saw that student walking. Okay. And he went back and checked his grade book, and sure enough, his grade had been changed.
Do you think that's just to keep the numbers up?
Exactly.
100%. Yep.
Exactly.
Is
And
it so
to
it's
give them
just
their
to
money.
just
Yeah.
to call successes no matter what?
Yeah, now we can brag. We can brag about our graduation rate and how awesome our graduation rate is. But again, what did we teach you while you were there?
Yeah, you taught people that it's okay to be liars, and
Yeah.
you also took money. These guys take money from the taxpayers for that child being in that classroom, and yet they're not there. So
Right.
that's horrendous. So what I learned during this whole thing, because we've got two people running in our district. The incumbent, Matt Hymas, who full disclosure is the principal of my child's school,
Okay.
and so I see his work at the school in real time. And we have Monica Wilbur, who's running, and she's what we've learned. I think she's been on our show a couple times, and Matt's been on once, but it seems to me the most powerful job is actually the school district, because the local school district, your job as a school board member is to create the standards, and then it's the school district's job to implement the standard for the district,
Right.
and administrators follow that. And yet somewhere it's lost in translation. Or do you think the state school board is actually this problem? Do you think they're not doing something correctly?
I 100%. I don't think they're doing a lot of things correctly, which is why I chose to throw my hat in. Part of the reason why, how you can tell that the State Board of Education is not doing their job, it's similar to, I'm going to use this analogy and then I'll tie that in. But right now at the federal level, we have an issue with immigration, right?
No, small one.
Yeah.
Small
right.
one. It's rather imperceptible if you're not looking hard.
Right. But it really would not matter. And this is why, the politics that they play with, not passing the immigration bill or whatever. It doesn't matter what our legislature does. There's already laws in place.
Right.
And we have an executive branch that is not enforcing those laws. Right. And so right now, we've got a state legislature that has continued to pass bills concerning education to try to fix some of the things that we're seeing, try to fix some of the problems that we're experiencing. And the State Board of Education is not doing a good job of then taking and implementing, those rules into policy and into rule, and so. You've really got, I think, a very similar situation in that I think that the State Board of Education has been absent of enforcing the rules, many of them that already exist in our system.
So which area is your district cover? Like what cities?
Yeah, so it's actually very interesting, but mine covers Linden, Vineyard, Orem, and then it goes out to Wasatch County, Duchesne County, Uintah County, and Daggett.
Oh,
That makes sense.
that
All
dragged
makes
you all the way
sense.
to the Colorado border.
Correct. Yes.
Now, can you let me ask some inside baseball? Would you be able to stay a teacher and do this? Do they allow that?
Yes. Yeah.
Now,
there's currently, I think, 2 teachers that are on the board.
would you be able to be on the district, on the USBE district that you work in, or would you have to try to transfer schools out of that?
Say that again. No,
let's say now
the school that I teach at is not in the district that I live in and where I run in. But
yeah, I understand that. But if it were, would it cause a conflict there?
No.
I don't know why it would.
I don't. I think that'd be awesome. Like your boss at the school has to come groveling to you on.
So tell me, this recent legislation that's passed this past session deals with DEI. It deals with CRT, deals with a lot of the trans bathroom situation and all of that. Where do you see the standards, and if you win, what do you see you can do as far as implementing some good standards for schools? Because you have a really keen sense, you're working there every single day. You're not distanced from it. You're seeing it every single day. Now you know this new legislation that's come in. Tell me how you could see it benefiting, these new legislation laws benefiting in schools right now.
Well, here's the bottom line, and what I ran, one of the important parts of what I think we need to do in education is get back to the basics, right? We got a lot of fluff that's going on in our schools, and this DEI and the CRT and a lot of this woke curriculum that's being pushed into our schools is just a lot of fluff, right?
It's all vanity projects.
Yeah, and you'll hear a lot of folks say, "Oh, that's not happening in our schools," and this is where though you've got to really understand what's happening in terms of just the subtleties of what's going on. It is absolutely happening, and there are in a handful of situations activist teachers
right
that are pushing these types of things. You guys probably remember a few years ago the viral video of the teacher in Lehigh where she's telling the students, your parents are stupid, they don't know what they're talking about. The thing that to me was really striking about that video is that to me it was obvious that this teacher had gotten away with that for a very long time.
Right.
This was not the first time she had done that, right? She had been pushing this ideology for many, many years, and she was so bold that she was 100% confident that she was going to get away with it again, right? And quite frankly, I think that she probably would have had it not gone viral.
That's pathetic.
The cell phones are changing the world.
Well, COVID also.
Sure.
Because parents got an overhead view of what their kid was learning online that maybe they didn't expect. Like, wait a minute, what is this teacher talking about me for?
And she wasn't a brand new teacher. She had been a teacher for a long time,
Correct.
At least 10 years, unless she started when she was way older.
No, yeah, and I've talked with parents and I've talked with coworkers that were at the school where she was at, and this was not something new, right? And so, it's that type of thing that we've really got to step back and I'm a school teacher. I've been teaching for 27 years, and there's something to be said for job security because certainly we don't want to be running teachers off left and right just because of one thing or another, but we've got to create a situation where if you're an activist teacher pushing your ideology onto students, no matter what your ideology is, you need to be out of the teaching profession.
What did she have an ally in the administration? Because you're not wrong. I mean, this is a different statistic, but they believe that most DUIs, this person has done DUI at least 80 times before their first actual charge. And the same thing for this lady. If she's emboldened by this behavior and she's too big to fail because she's gotten away with it so many times, has the administration, are they
times?
Let me finish. Are they forgiving her and she's just giving her a pat on the back or a slap on the wrist prior, but now that it's viral, now they have to do something public?
Yeah, well, here's and it's the problems are multifaceted, really. But I'm going to put blame where I think blame deserves to be put, and that is on the teachers union. I grew up in a home with a steel worker. My dad worked at Geneva Steel when I was growing up. He was a union guy. I grew up looking at unions, seeing some of the value that unions can bring to the worker. But the teachers union is no longer looking out for the worker. They are looking out for their political advocacy. I've told people, in 4 years, when I get elected to the board, in 4 years, teachers will love me. The teachers union will hate me even worse than they already do. And I think that the teachers union is a big part of the problem of what's happening with allowing poor teaching to exist in our classroom. They're protecting poor teachers. They're protecting teachers who are advocating for these types of ideas, and that's where we've got to stand up to this powerful organization. I've been standing up against my teachers union really since I started my career, and it's a battle, but they're extremely powerful. You look at our governor and how much influence the union has on our governor. You look at even our legislature that generally speaking is a fairly conservative legislature, but they still wield a lot of power up there.
Well, they should be. I mean, we have the Republican majority there, and yet some of the stuff that can't get passed or that gets passed with so much compromise in it, you would think that it was a 50-50 split up there.
Right.
And it's not.
Yeah. So, that they've created a scenario where it's very difficult to get rid of a teacher.
Is there tenure for high school?
Yep. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's one of our problems in colleges too.
After 3 years. Yep.
Do you think we would be better off if the union maybe wasn't a national? Because I'm not anti-union. I like the voice unions can provide. I'm not pro-union either. I'm ambivalent. But do you think it'd be better if the union was maybe a state localized union instead of a centralized union located out of DC?
Well, see, and you bring up a good point. There needs to be advocacy groups for teachers, and there needs to be advocacy groups for workers, no matter the industry, right? But see, and this is this is something that I really want my school teacher peers to really understand is, on a national level, the National Education Association and really the UEA, which is the Utah Education Association, they're locked arms. And so really, I don't feel like our UEA is any less liberal than the NEA, the National Education Association. But they, if you read their bylaws and you read what they stand for, you read whose campaigns they donate to. It is one of the most left-leaning organizations that's out there. And when you join as a union member, no matter what school district you're in Utah, you are paying dues to your local association, you're paying dues to the state association, and you're paying dues to the national association. And so all three of those get your dollars when you pay your membership. And there's no way that I'll pay a dime into that organization because they don't deserve my money, number one, but two, just what they're advocating for doesn't line up with conservative values. And
do they claim to be separate? Is that a claim they make, that they're separate entities?
No, they don't even try to make that claim.
Well,
No.
and with your values, what you believe in is so conservative in a certain area of the state. So even though they're a Utah agency, how we are in Tooele County or parts of rural or Orem, for example, conservatism has a whole different, it's a different representation even there. So locally, the more local that you are, you should have representation there for you. Do you get to choose then if you join this union or not? And it has always been that way?
Yeah, you do get to choose. But that's the thing that's in policy right now, like in most school districts, is that the school districts are negotiating exclusively with these union reps and with the union. So school teachers, there's often two main reasons why people will join the union, the teachers union, and one of them is for liability protection. And I've tried to really help people understand there's lots of ways for you to get liability protection without having to join the union. And then, but the second is because they do exclusively negotiate with the individual districts, the contracts that teachers have with that district. So the union is negotiating the benefits, they're negotiating the retirement, they're negotiating pay scale and salary scales, and there's no other voices at the table, and that's one of the things that I think is just truly a crime, is that there's no other voice at the table in those negotiations.
And that should be your school board's voice, both state and local. Your members of the school board, elected, accountable people, should be negotiating for the teacher, for the student, for the parents.
Right. Those local school boards are in those negotiations, but what I'm saying is that the teachers are only represented by
Gotcha.
the union.
What type of liabilities do you have to protect yourself?
It depends if you're a Grantsville High School football coach or not. But
yeah, and you bring up coaching. I'm a wrestling coach, and so there's certainly a different liability that you have as a coach than in the classroom. But there's all kinds of things that can happen in the classroom, and kids can accuse you of things, and and you've got to be able to have a way to represent yourself if a student came after you with a false accusation, or even sometimes you've got principals that may make an accusation against you, and you might need representation. So that's
expensive on a teacher's salary, even to pay for a lawyer, especially if you're not guilty of anything. And I'm one of those people that would be just fine if every classroom had a camera in it all the time, because I think a lot of teachers would behave, or at least follow laws that way.
Or be protected.
Students, false accusations from students may stop.
Here's what we need to figure out, because I don't mind you putting a camera in my classroom, but there are sensitive things in terms of the students, right?
Right. A child feeling comfortable to open up.
If you're having the students take turns reading, and a student doesn't read as quickly as maybe some of the other students, I don't know that student would want that to be out there for everybody to see.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and so there's certain things that we got to kind of try to be careful about protecting the privacy of our kids. Having all of the discussions, all the dialogue that's taking place in a classroom, public, but I think there's a balance. I think there's a way that we can create the transparency, because I'm certainly in favor of the transparency without compromising the privacy of our students.
Well, that's another thing. You're also mandatory reporters, and which is important because you are with kids all the time. But if a child is being recorded, they may not be feeling open to go to you with something that you would normally help them with, but they wouldn't. And maybe that would be dangerous. Where do you I mean, is there anyone on the board you see yourself working well with? Have you gotten to know the current school board members? And do you see that, there are some you can work with and actually get some good policies?
Absolutely. I have kind of said that throughout my campaign that I feel like there are 4 good conservatives on the board right now, and that I think are in line with my values in terms of what I stand for. I don't always agree with how they go about it, but I think ideologically I line up with them.
Would you name them or no?
What's that?
Would you name them?
Yeah, Christina Bogus, Emily Green, Joe Carey, and Natalie Klein are the 4 that I actually feel like are conservative. And so I think that those individuals I think have been standing for on the right side of most issues. Natalie's no longer going to be on the board when I if I take office in in January. But there's definitely, I think, board members that I look forward to working with. And I do think that this upcoming election, one of the things that we've got to, as conservatives, we've got to do a better job of is we pay attention to the big races. We pay attention to the president of the United States, and we pay attention to the Senate race and the Congress race. And we're looking at Trent Staggs, and we're looking at, Mike Kennedy and J.R. Byrd, and we're focusing on those things. And in the meantime, the left focuses on the local races.
Right. So true. And, the ones that actually affect your life. Yeah.
And so when you look at Alpine School District, for example, and I'm just going to give you Alpine School District where I teach, we have 7 board members in Alpine School District. And I think Alpine School District in the area it covers is probably a pretty red area, right? Comparatively speaking with the rest of the country. And our local board, I would say 5 out of the 7 on that board are far from conservative,
Yeah. And you can't run partisan, so you don't have to tell
Correct.
anyone how you vote, but your actions do it for you.
Correct.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't pay as close attention to their school board race or their.
It's like one of the most important jobs on the planet.
City council race.
Districts, man.
Can I drag you off into the weeds for a minute and ask you about? It feels like an outsider looking in. It seems like there's been a modern Marxist takeover of education over the last 20 years. And what does it look like on the inside? What's your thoughts on that statement?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I've for the first 23 years of my career, I watched this gradual decline. And over the last 4 years, it hasn't been gradual at all. It's almost like they don't even try to hide anymore. I love my job. I love the teaching industry. I love a lot of my peers, but teachers are some of the most risk adverse people that you'll ever meet. And they like the job security. They like the protection. But part of what we're seeing 100%, I think, is that it's been subtle. I don't think it anymore. It's subtle at all, but yeah, it's this ideology that it's the government's job to fix our problems, and that's what we've struggled with really in education, in my opinion, is, school teachers, they may be conservative, some of them in a lot of ways, but they're so used to having the government fix their problems that they don't really understand, how shutting down our economy impacts the small business,
Yeah.
And I didn't worry for a day during COVID whether or not I was going to get a paycheck. I knew my paycheck was coming, but in the meantime, I run a couple of events that are big events, and those events were in jeopardy of being shut down. You know, I had to jump through hundreds of hoops to even pull those events off. You know, the one year, my largest event that I run, they didn't allow spectators.
Oh, maybe he'll come back on.
It looks like he's still connected, right? Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
You know,
we lost you for a second.
I
there?
work for a racetrack. Can you hear me? I can hear. We can see you now. Can you hear us?
Can you hear us, Cole? Oh, he may be fighting through it. Yeah, it's
So he's saying because they're government employees, they don't have that risk of missing a paycheck.
all right.
Whereas can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay.
I brought my dad to the baseball game, and he's trying to find me.
Well, no, you got to take. No, there's nothing better than when you take the grandpa to the ball game. Nothing better on earth. No, it's you're. You know, I said this in the beginning of COVID, and hopefully people listen to me. But COVID is our reaction to COVID is an economy destroyer. And I think we're finding that out the hard way.
Well,
it's an economy. It's a destroyer, and we did every wrong move we could have done. We did as a nation, as a state, as a region, as cities.
You made a really great point. Is teachers are used to that paycheck, and people in the private sector like Jared and I were. I mean, I work for a racetrack, so trust me when you say, I understand you have an event without spectators, that will destroy your event. It's mainly how you profit. Right. And we're on 511 acres. I could separate people. We could check temperatures, and I'm battling an unelected bureaucrat for the health department for our right to make money and profit from our business. So when teachers hear that, they may not understand because they get a paycheck. They're government employees. And when the government gets so big, where it's the number one employer in the country, well, then those people don't have a clue what it's like to try to make a payroll, what it's like to try to insure people with these new regulations on healthcare. I mean, how to hire people who are qualified from the pool that is given to us through our education system. I mean, there's a lot attached to that.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, like I don't know when I got cut off, and I apologize before that, but yeah, I you know, when like you say, when I can't have spectators at my event, you know, it's a huge hit to my event. We played around with some things. We figured it out. You know, and I run a large wrestling tournament. It's called the Rockwell Rumble, but
oh, cool. Hey, turn your phone sideways and we get a better view of you. Can you do that?
My bad. Yeah, you said that, and I.
Awesome.
Okay. But
Rockwell, that's awesome.
But anyways, it's when that happened. When that happened, you know, we had to get creative. I had to figure out ways that I could get parents in to let them watch their kids, but ultimately we had them volunteer and help us keep score and help us do a whole bunch of other things, which, you know, it helped offset some of the costs and some of the overhead, but we
you made them essential workers.
Yeah.
You had to turn out how to make them essential workers so they could be there, and yet people could riot in the streets of downtown by the hundreds of thousands. They didn't have to. They couldn't sit next to somebody at a wrestling event. Yeah, it all made a lot of sense.
Yeah. My son. That was my son's senior year too.
That's horrible.
You want to talk about just some of the ridiculous things that we did with kids. It was frustrating. So,
what do you think the differences are? Okay, I'm going to do some prefacing. I remember growing up thinking that my dad's a troglodyte. I'm learning so much more than him. But then as I've gotten older and listened to him and stories he told, even, he graduated high school in 74. So, and I listened to it, and they were learning more advanced stuff then. Oh, might have dropped him again. Are you still there?
Is your dad looking for you?
Uh,
He's probably answering the phone.
Yeah, he's probably getting a call. He'll be back. Are you there? Well, it's fun dealing with this, but like I thought my dad, they couldn't have, we know so much more, in the 90s
No,
when
you're
I
not
went to
wrong.
school. And
They
then,
learned a lot of real basic, important stuff
okay, you're back.
without the fluff.
Yeah, I apologize. Yeah.
Oh, nothing to apologize for.
Every time a new call keeps trying to come through on my phone, it does that, and I don't know what's going on.
It's okay. We'll just get used to you have to jump off and jump back on.
And actually, Cole, we can do another interview with you. We can set it up. You
Yeah.
can come in studio, or we can do it when you're home with your
Yeah.
office or whatever.
No, yeah, we'll have to do that, but because I'm trying to multitask here, and I apologize.
It's life. It's not a big deal, man.
How was this whole thing with you, with the delegates? How was that? Talking to parents, talking to people, and hearing from their perspective.
2 years ago, I ran for the Alpine Board of Education, and I loved the process of running. I lost that race. But what I decided is that even though I lost, I'm not afraid to fail, and I'm going to throw my hat in again. And I think that race did a lot to help prepare me for this one. But my favorite part of the process is talking to the voters and hearing from them and listening to their thoughts and where they stand on issues. And this campaign and this time around has not been any different. I've really enjoyed the process. When I looked at this race and I looked at the seat that I was going to be running for, I live in Vineyard, and I told you my area covers kind of Orem, Vineyard, Linden, but it goes out to Wasatch County, out to Duchesne County and Uintah County. And I may live in Vineyard, but man, my politics line up more with those folks out in Uintah County than it does Utah County, I think.
Yeah,
Really?
the oil
More than
diggers.
Utah County.
Yeah. So
Utah County's rather purple.
It's getting purple.
Yeah, and Provo,
really
I mean, the closer you are to BYU, the more communist it is.
That is what a lot of college places are, though.
But I want to go back to that question. This is kind of an overall question, but when I was in high school, I thought my dad, they couldn't have learned as much as me because we know so much more. And then as I grew older and he showed me the slide rule and I learned how to use that and the stuff he learned, it seemed like they were learning more advanced stuff in the 70s than we were in the 90s on just the general education.
They were learning important things.
And then,
there were no social justice issues.
And then I wonder, what is your thoughts as a individual who graduated in the 90s? What is your thoughts of the overall health of education now in the 2020s? Do you think that because I started to get a feeling like the general education kept dropping, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just my perspective because
you're not wrong. I'll say that right off the bat. One of my favorite books, and I actually read this in my finance class, is The Richest Man in Babylon. And in The Richest Man in Babylon, he says, you can learning from experience and talking to people who have experience is like using the stars to guide you, right? They're fixed, and there's fixed principles that you can learn from. And then he goes on to say, but when you learn from the youth, it's like the falling stars. They look really pretty, but their light's going to. you know, part of the one of my philosophies as a coach is I focus with my teams on the basics, and we're going to do the basics better than anybody in the state. And we've had a lot of success in that philosophy. Do the basics better than everybody else. And what's happening in education, like you said, we've gone so far away from the basics. I'm teaching a financial literacy class, and I just to get kids to change a decimal into a percentage or a percentage into a decimal, they struggle with basic concepts like that. When I'm trying to teach them about compounding interest and I'm trying to teach them how interest works, they struggle with basic math concepts. And so we're teaching math concepts in these math classes that are so far beyond, you know, what I've ever needed to use in my life, but they can't even calculate some of the basic functions of, you know, figuring out how a decimal works and figuring out how to compound interest.
I can't believe that they don't memorize multiplication and this Common Core stuff. I'm trying to help my child do their homework in second grade, and I have to watch a YouTube tutorial because the simplicity that we had as kids, you memorized your times tables so that you could remember them in a quick second.
You might have. I had to kick my shoes off.
They're going up to 10 and they're coming down from the 10, and you're just like, why are you taking all these needless steps?
Well, this financial literacy, this is something that's going to touch their life every day until they put them in the ground.